Hello again and good morning or good day to everyone. So today we're gonna be discussing food loss. So bawat isa naman sa atin ay aware na ang isang society ay nag-ooperate dahil may batas, no? And kung wala ito, we have a state of what we call anarchy. And because of that, there are also laws that pertain to food, given how food is very important to each of us in our lives, no? So we'll have a brief introduction about food laws in this segment. This is no replacement to the food laws course you will be taking a few years down the line, since that will be diving into the nitty-gritty of the specific laws we need to know as food technologists, as well as how we should act in terms of or in regard to the law, whether it be obeying it or participating in lawmaking. So for today, we'll just have an introduction on food laws. So kapag sinabi nating law or batas, ano ba yung usually na-associate niyo? You can maybe pause this video for a while and think for yourself. Are there any experiences that you might relate to the word law? Are there any things that come to mind, any images? Okay, so I want you to think about that before proceeding. Alright, so now that you've thought about it, here's the definition of law according to the dictionary. First is a binding customer practice of a community, a rule of conduct or action prescribed or formally recognized as binding or enforced by a controlling authority. So ito yung mga do's and don'ts, mga dapat mong sundin within the particular community. So in our level, di ba, meron tayong mga barangay specific na mga batas, meron ding city specific ordinances, and on the national level, we also have national laws which are implemented by various bodies or government entities. Second definition is the whole body of such customs, practices, or rules the court exists to uphold, interpret, and apply the law. So, ito naman pag sinasabi natin, di ba, yung ang batas. So, that's an all-inclusive term for, let's say, all of the collection of Republic Acts that we have. I believe there are more than 11,000 Republic Acts to date. So, ang hirap maging lawyer na the longer a government has been in existence, the more laws get passed and the more the lawyers need to know. Okay, and there's also what we call the common law. So, this common law is yung mga may precedent. No? Hindi sila technically written nung ginawa yung batas, but these are the precedents that the judges or lawmakers follow when arriving at a decision. So sometimes you can see, di ba, yung mga sa korte, yung may mga sinasite silang precedent na in the case ng ganito versus ganyan, ganito yung naging decision ng judge. And then it becomes a precedent, meaning to say, in all future similar cases, they will follow this decision-making logic, so to speak, to arrive at a conclusion as to how to judge the person is involved. Okay, pag sinabi naman nating food laws, these are, according to FAO, legislation regulating the production, trade, and handling of food, and covers thus of food control, food safety, and food trade. Okay? So, maraming batas ito na nandyan yung for food control. So, ano yung mga makakapasok at makakalabas sa isang bansa or lugar. Food safety, definitely we'll discuss that later, but it does involve having standards for food as what is safe and unsafe, what you are allowed to sell and not sell. And even sa food trade, medyo may economic yan, may mga technical barriers, even across countries. And then, we could look at all of these later, I think, in the succeeding slides. It also includes minimum quality requirements to ensure the foods produced are unadulterated and are not subject to fraudulent practices intended to deceive the consumer. So, in one sense, it's also primarily for consumer protection, since ang napaka-specific sa food is it's intended to be consumed. And when consumed, it could either give a health benefit, nourish our bodies, or cause harm, such as diseases and maybe even death in certain cases. And the coverage of the food laws generally is the whole food chain. So meron dyan sa side ng agriculture, starting from what the animals are being fed to farm controls, as well as all stages of processing. We have like post-harvest handling after mong katayin or i-harvest katayin yung animals or i-harvest yung gulay or prutas. The cold chain if dumadaan siya sa frozen or refrigerated storage, and in each step of the processing, turning your raw materials into intermediate or finished products until it is distributed to the consumer. So pati sa mga groceries, ganyan, and dun sa whoever will be the final retailers. Okay, what are the law-related duties and competencies of BSFP graduates? So first is, of course, we need to, so this is based on the Commission on Higher Education memo on competencies of food scientists and food technologists, rather, dated 2019. So we need to comply with food laws and regulations in the manufacturing, distribution of foods in local and international markets. So, kwento muna, no? I used to work for Magnolia Ice Cream nga, and there was a time na nag-export kami. So we had a different export permit for each country that we exported to. And because each country had a different law, on some countries we had a different packaging or label kasi iba yung kailangan i-declare. On certain cases, we used a different formulation or called our product differently. Like for example, yung ice cream na commonly nabibili natin dito sa Pilipinas, sa ibang western countries, ang technical term doon ay Melurine, no? Kasi they didn't meet the standard definition of ice cream. Since, in case you didn't know, most local ice creams, yung mga nabibili natin, Selecta, Nestle, Magnolia, may halo yung vegetable oil as a fat source. Hindi puro dairy milk fat kasi mahal yung milk fat, no? So, para mapababa yung cost nun. Pero hindi naman nalalasahan, di ba? Nalasang mantika yung ice cream kasi because food science, right? So anyway, yun, no? And that's why we have to be familiar with the law dun sa market kung mag-e-export tayo, kung ano ba yung prohibitions na, yung labeling rules na, among other things, right? Or for example, there was a market na hindi kami pwedeng gumamit ng yung typical food color powders. Merong, I think, ban nila yung blue one na food color. So we used natural food colorants na gawa sa dinikdik na insekto. It's called carmine powder. So it's very expensive, right? I'm not kidding you. Search carmine powder. All right. So again, we first need to be aware of the existing food laws, policies, and regulations, whether here or abroad. Understand the implication of non-compliance. So, ano ba yung sanctions dyan? Makukulong ba kami? Mababan ba kami? Ano yung effect nito sa mga tao? Remember, kung naabutan nyo yung issue sa China noon na naghalo ng melamine sa milk and it could cause harm to the infants consuming them. Ano nangyari? Na firing squad yung mga people involved by the Chinese government. No? So, ganun kalala. Kasi nga naman, pwedeng makapatay yung Melurine contamination ng mga infants or cause maybe acute or chronic harm to them. Then next is assist in the review of proposed regulations and preparation of position papers. So as I mentioned a few weeks back, no, part ng trabaho ng food tech with regard to the law is marunong ka mag-input dun sa mga lawmakers because you're part of this industry. So, example, if you work in the coconut industry and then there's a law related to virgin coconut oil, or they're making standards for it, like the same way they're making standards for adobo. Actually, yung VCO may standards pala. So, at least you can contribute to that, no? And you are supposed to be, kasi kayo yung expert pagdating dun sa food product na yun or sa process na yun. Okay. So let's discuss and I'll just run down through a few relevant landmark laws, no? We have the RA 11052, or the Philippine Food Technology Act of 2018, Consumer Act, Food Labeling Act, Nutrition Labeling, Food Fortification Act, the Salt Iodization or ASIN Law, Sanitation Code, Food Safety Act of 2013, and Current Good Manufacturing Practices 2004, which is actually being drafted again last 2020, pero alam ko hindi pa na-publish yung, it's still a draft yung revised version niya. Okay, so I've highlighted two which are yung pinaka-landmark, which is the 11052 and 10611. So we'll look at that in a while. So we also have the Codex Alimentarius, or the Food Code, which is an international code which most countries adhere to for the standardization of products, among other things. Okay, we have halal or kosher, and we have the SPSTBT, or the sanitary phytosanitary measures and technical barriers to trade, which are usually related to export, no? Ano pa yung iba? We have import-export trading regulations depending sa country. Locally, we have the license to operate. So kung ikaw ay food manufacturing facility or even food storage facility or retailing, kailangan mo ng LTO from the FDA. Retailing, repacking pala. And the certificate of product registration, which was required, I think, in 2009 or 2010, na yung mga products ay kailangan i-register. So kung naalala nyo yung Reno liver spread as being unregistered kasi mas matanda pa daw siya sa FDA. So ito yung tinutukoy doon, yung CPR. Okay? So ideally, if you're mass producing or selling a product na may shelf life, ideally you'd get a CPR from the FDA. There are also food laws on incentives and benefits to the food industry, such as the Sulong Microfinancing Program and the Investment Priority Plan. So I'm just mentioning these here. You can look them up na lang. Okay. But we'll discuss some of the landmark ones. Alright, so 11052, the Philippine Food Technology Act, approved in 2018. So pinaglaban po ito ng ating mga ancestors for decades, I believe, until finally it was pushed through by one person in Congress who was apparently my teacher in HE nung ako po ay undergrad, and nanay po ni Cheese Escudero. Okay, so an act regulating the practice of food technology in the Philippines, creating for the purpose of the board food technology and appropriating funds thereof. In short, ito po ay professionalization ng BSFT, na magkakaroon na tayo ng PRC license and board exam. Ang last update po, alam ko, ay naghahanap na sila ng mga board members who will constitute the board of directors. And I think they only have one as of the moment. Siyempre, yung board, kailangan hindi lang nag-iisa yung tao doon, di ba? There. So, the implementing rules and regulations are also pending. Without an IRR, hindi mo pwedeng ipatupad ang isang batas, no? So, pero at least nandun na yung batas, okay? So, hopefully by the time you graduate, meron na kayong board exam. And magiging professionals na kayo on the level of engineers, nutritionists, teachers, and doctors, among other things. Alright. Okay, so ano ba yung laman nito? First is that it recognizes the importance of food technologies in nation building and development. Woohoo! Salamat! At hindi na tayo mga, luto-luto lang yan. Ano ba yung food tech na yan? Mga ganun, di ba? Okay, then it's to develop and nurture competent, virtuous, and productive, well-rounded professional food technologists whose standards of practice and service shall be excellent, world-class, and globally competitive through programs and measures that would foster professionalism, social responsibility, and development. So in short po, gusto nating i-standardize yung BSFT sa bansa kasi maraming nagki-claim na parang food tech yung course na ino-offer nila sa college or close to food tech, tapos bakit yung isa 3 years lang? Bakit iba yung laman? Bakit wala sila ng ganitong subjects? So, syempre, masakit yun sa reputasyon natin as food technologists if there's no standardization, and this at least would help towards that. And of course, Commission on Higher Education also has that CMO series of 2019, which outlines the curriculum needed for a BSFT course, okay, in college. Right, Section C, food technologist, a person who qualified to practice food technology as provided in the Act, and who is a holder of a certificate of registration and professional license issued by the PRC. So, Yun, professional na tayo. Ibig sabihin, pwede ka rin matanggalan ng lisensya pag may ginawa kang kalokohan. Kasi before, ngayon nga, wala pa namang license, criminally liable ka as an individual but not as a professional per se. Among other things, it does define then a food technologist. Okay, so ano naman yung scope of practice ng isang food technologist, no? So, as identified in the RA 11052, ito yung pwede nating gawin as a food tech professional. Identify raw material specifications and supervise their procurement. So, yung pagbili ng ingredients as well as food processing equipment. You can be food processing operation supervisors, no? Kasi dati parang ang kinukuha lang parati dito mga engineer. Ano bang alam ng engineer sa food safety? Siguro alam nila yung makina, pero do they know what can contaminate the food or what harm could be caused by a certain breach in protocols of food safety? Of course, most of the time not, unless they've been trained in their job after graduation. Okay, evaluation of microbiological, physical, chemical, and sensory and functional properties of food. And along with that, certification of the analysis of micro, physical, and chemical and functional properties of food. Right? No, kasi ngayon, halimbawa sa chem, medyo issue to kasi i-insist halimbawa ng chemistry na yung mga chemical analysis, kami lang ang pwede mag-certify niyan kasi registered chemist kami. Pero ang nilalaban naman natin as food technologists, inaral din naman namin yan, tsaka kami naman sa pagkain lang. Yung chemical analysis ng petroleum, inyo na yun. Pero kung measure kami ng pH ng food or mag-titrate kami ng acidity ng food or whatever, mag-measure kami ng fat content ng food, sa amin na yun, total part naman yun ng competencies. So, as you would know later, marami pong chemistry subjects ang food science, and we even have specific food chemistry and food analysis subjects, no? So, I think we're more than qualified to do these things even if we're not licensed chemists. Alright, technical transactions including trade of food and ingredients, additives, machineries, equipment, implements for use in safe and quality food production and distribution. So, this simply means no, na you can be technical sales personnel. Alright? Meaning to say, pag-graduate mo, pwedeng ang trabaho mo yung nagbebenta ka, nag-aalok ka ng mga ingredients or equipment for food production sa mga food manufacturing companies. We actually have a few graduates na ito yung trabaho. One works for a flavor house, for example, and nag-aalok siya ng mga flavoring compounds for use in industrial manufacture to various clients and companies. Okay? Even then, nung nasa Magnolia Ice Cream ako, for example, we had meron kaming ice cream flavors na actually yung ginagamit naming base mix for the flavor is composed of, let's say, 3 or 4 different flavoring ingredients which are sourced from more than one supplier or more than one company, no? Para mahirap siya i-replicate. Alright? So, ganun, no? And we order from them like mga drum ng flavoring ingredients, no? And syempre may salesperson yun na one day nag-approach sa amin para bentahan kami. Uy, try nyo to para sa ube ice cream nyo. Try nyo to para sa, let's say, vanilla ice cream nyo. Ganon. Right? We also need to conduct or we can do basic and applied research towards development and improvement of safety and quality of food products. So, whether it be yung product development for a new product or improvement of the process to increase safety or to address quality issues, that's also part of a food technologist's job. So actually, itong mga binabasa natin is related na sila sa anong pwede maging trabaho nyo after you graduate, considering magstay kayo man dito sa PSFE for the next 4 years. Right, next is teaching, lecturing, reviewing of professional subject in the curriculum of PSFE, subject or licensure examination in any college, university, training, or review center. That's what I'm doing now. So, pwede rin kayo maging part ng academe as teaching or educational research fellows. Okay. Next is compliance with food laws. So definitely, if you're working with a company, you have to comply with the local and international laws depending on what your market is. Okay. Implementation of quality management systems. We have a whole subject dedicated to this, no, in your 3rd year. provision of assistance in waste management, and environmental safety. So, as we know, food manufacturing facilities produce a lot of waste and these may cause environmental harm. So, yung pag-secure ng mga DENR permits, etc., depending on where you are, the Laguna Lake Development Authority also has a permit for manufacturing plants, no? And so on. Consultation work in any of the above functions and procurement of chemical reagents, equipment, and apparatus and other materials for the conduct of research, food analysis, and development. So, self-explanatory. So, again, no, ang dami palang pwedeng gawin ng isang food technology professional. And given that actually our job is COVID-proof kasi isa sa mga hindi pinapatigil ang food science, rather ang food production. And definitely nandyan yung mga quality assurance personnel, product development personnel, logistics personnel, and so on. So, ang ganda ng trabaho natin, no? Hindi siya nawawala talaga.
Okay, so sino nga ba ang qualified na mag-take ng licensure examination? So since this is a Philippine licensure exam, you must be a Filipino citizen with good moral character and have a BSFT degree from an accredited CHED institution. So you have to graduate first, no? Kung gusto nyo talaga maging totoong food tech. And wala kayong offense involving moral turpitude by any court of competent jurisdiction. So these are self-explanatory. As for the coverage of the exam, okay, so nandyan yung physical, chemical, biological, and microbiological principles, which correspond to some of your major subjects, as well as food processing, preservation, and food engineering, quality control and sensory evaluation, and food laws and regulations. So these are covered by most of your major subjects, and hopefully you get to enjoy them as well as you're taking them. Alright, as a final note, so many laws are good on paper but often lack implementation. So even though we have the RA 11052 and 10611, 10611 supposed to be has been implemented for quite a few years now, but I haven't heard of any convictions yet, no? Sa dinami-dami doon ng mga sinabi nilang mga bawal gawin, hindi dapat gawin, parang wala naman dong nakakasuhan or nakukulong. So there's something wrong with our implementation of the law. And one other thing is that laws are crafted for a reason, mainly to combat issues, no? We had the food fortification law to eliminate yung mga nutritional deficiencies, etc. We have food safety and food quality laws so that we could eliminate those issues on safety and quality. And habang mas maraming mga bagong problema na nag-a-arise, then we would need more laws. Like for example, ngayon medyo problema yung mislabeling of food or yung mga let's say pagkain na merong problema sa food integrity, no? So that we'll discuss that issue later on as well, no? So I hope you stay tuned for our next few topics. So there, and this doc says goodbye. Thank you very much and have a nice day.